Hello, thank you so much for joining me today for my quarterly reading wrap up, and this is the Q3 wrap up, which means that I'm going to be talking about the highlights from the last 3 months, which were July, August and September. As always, I'm going to start with the stats for the month, and then I'm not going to talk about every single book I read obviously in the last quarter, but I'm going to pull out the highlights. So that's all of my 5-star reads, and also I've got 3 honourable mentions as well, which I'll get to at the end. So first up, my stats then. So in the last 3 months I read 40 books, so I'm 5 books behind my target because I like to read 15 books a month, so I should have read 45 books, but I'm a little bit behind, but I'm going to hopefully catch up in the last quarter. In total it came to 15,251 pages, which was an average of 167 pages per day, so not too bad. That is a typical reading average for me, and I think one of the reasons I've read fewer books is because actually the books seem to be getting longer that I'm picking up, and I'm reading many more books that are over the 400 page mark, where previously I'd be reading books that are just around 300 pages, 350, that sort of thing. So I think that absolutely does make a difference and slows me down slightly when I'm reading. In terms of the subgenres, I had 1 billionaire romance, 5 contemporaries, 1 dystopian, 1 erotic, 1 fantasy, 2 historical, 12 mafia, 1 omega verse, 5 paranormal, 2 small town. I should also mention that I did read 1 non-romance book, which was women's fiction as well, which I think I've kind of categorised in here as contemporary just because I didn't have a non-romance category on my spreadsheet. In terms of how I read them, I actually had 12 ARCs, 5 audiobooks, 4 ebooks, 15 KU books and 4 physical books. And then in terms of the star ratings, I had 3 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 17 4 stars, 10 4.5 stars and 7 5-star reads. But 2 of those 5-star reads were actually rereads, so I'll mention them quickly as well, but I'm not going to be talking about them in depth today. So I'm just going to cover 5 of my 5-star reads that I read in the last 3 months, and then like I say, I've got 3 honourable mentions as well. So let's get stuck straight in then. So like I said, I had 7 5-star reads. 2 of those were rereads. So the first one was Dom by S.J. Tilley. I absolutely adore this book. It's book 3 of the Alliance series. It's a mafia romance and absolutely my favourite of this series. I ended up rereading this one as an audiobook because I really wanted a comfort read when I was travelling for work, and I just decided to put this one on, and it hit just as well as it did the first time I read it. Absolutely loved it and reinforced my belief that this is absolutely the best one in the series. I just love Dom's character to death. So I'm not going to talk about it any more than that, but just know that that was a standout read as well from the quarter. The other 5-star read was Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. I actually reread that one as part of a book club because I started a book club with some colleagues, and what we're actually doing is each picking a book, reading it, annotating it, and then passing it around to the next person. So there's always 6 books in rotation because there's 6 of us taking part, and I decided that I wanted to introduce them to dark romance and thought Still Beating was a fairly safe place to start, and so that is kind of what I read. Once again, it was still a 5-star read for me. Really enjoyed that one, and I was glad that I picked it because I think it was still darks to give them a flavour for what a dark romance is all about, but not super horrific, and also while there is some sexual content in there, it's not super spicy either. So I was very happy with that pick, and like I say, still rated it 5 stars. But to get on to my new 5-star favourites of the quarter, the first one I want to talk about is The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea by Elizabeth O'Rourke, which is a contemporary romance, and it's book 2 of the Grumpy Devils series. Now, I absolutely adored book 1 as well of this series, also rated that one 5 stars, and I was just thrilled that this one was also such a great book. It's such a great read. I just absolutely loved the tension and the chemistry between this couple, how they came together throughout the story, and I was absolutely rooting for them to be together because we were following Drew and Josh. Now, Drew is a very famous pop star. She's a bit of a Taylor Swift character. She's loved the world over, has a lot of publicity, a lot of attention, but it becomes very clear that she is being mismanaged. Her manager is horrible to her. She is constantly forced into, recording contracts, going on tour, having to do constant appearances, interviews, that sort of thing. And this woman is exhausted. She's also harbouring a bit of a secret because she suffers quite a lot with anxiety and often kind of faints or, you know, has anxiety attacks. As a result, because she doesn't tell anyone that is what the issue is, everyone very much believes that she is an alcoholic, and her manager very much plays into this and doesn't reveal the truth to anyone. So he makes her feel bad for being an alcoholic when he even knows that she isn't one. And so at a recent concert, she fell off the stage. Everyone thinks it was because she was drunk. And so now, according to the press, what everyone believes in the public eye is that she is now in rehab. Actually, she's not in rehab. She's gone on a family holiday to Hawaii. She has an ex-boyfriend who is also in the music industry, and he wants to give their relationship another go. And so he's invited her to go with him on his family holiday. So basically it's his mum and dad and his brother Josh and Josh's girlfriend and himself and Drew. Drew agrees to go because, one, she wants to get away from it all. She thinks Hawaii will be a great place to do it, and she is prepared to give this guy a second chance. The thing is, when she turns up in Hawaii, her ex-boyfriend doesn't, because he's been delayed. He's been on tour, he's been delayed, he's been a bit of a naughty boy, and he's actually been put behind bars for a couple of days. His lawyer's going to get him out, but it means he's going to be late to attend this family holiday. So of course Drew's thrust into this situation where now she has kind of got to make conversation with his parents and also this guy's brother Josh. Like I say, Josh is there with his girlfriend, but it also transpires that this is not his girlfriend either. And what we learn is that the mother is actually sick. She's dying of cancer, and she wants this to be the most fantastic, amazing family holiday because of her sickness, and it might be the last chance they all get to go on holiday together. And so Drew's been invited because her mother doesn't know that Drew split up with her son, and so they're just trying to make happy families. And the same is true of Josh and his girlfriend, because Josh again didn't tell anyone that they're actually no longer seeing each other. And so it's very, very awkward because now Josh and Drew are kind of thrust together in this holiday scenario where it's clear they have amazing chemistry but hate each other in equal measure, and they're also pretending that they're partners of other people, and so it's all a little bit awkward. But as we go through this story, Drew and Josh, like I say, end up spending a lot more time together. Josh starts to realise that she's not a spoiled pop princess as maybe he thought she was previously, and she starts to find out much more about Josh. And we also learn that Josh is a doctor, and he is currently working in Somalia helping people who otherwise would not get medical attention. And so he is a really good guy through and through. And as this story progresses, Josh starts to make Drew question all of her life choices. You know, why are you staying with a manager who is clearly not looking after your best interests? Why aren't you writing and recording your own songs? Why are you in a relationship with my brother? And all of those types of questions. And in return, Drew gets Josh to think about his life as well. But like I said, overall, I absolutely love this one. It was an absolute slow burn. You could absolutely feel the chemistry between this couple. I loved all of their interactions, their banter, what happens, and how protective Josh was of her. And he did some really swingy things in this story as well. So absolutely loved every moment of this one. I did listen to it as an audiobook, and it was narrated by Lee Samuels and Samantha Brentmore. I think they did a fantastic job. Would definitely recommend this one. And it also has that, I know we're going into autumn now, kind of missed our chance, but it definitely has that summer vibe because it's set, like I say, in Hawaii. So we definitely recommend it for your summer holidays, or if you're taking a sunny vacation over the winter period. Next up is another book that I read in September, which is Bitter Burn by Sierra Simone. This is book 3 in the Lioness series. It is very much a dark romance, and because it's the third part of a trilogy, I'm not going to go into too much details of what actually happened in this particular book, but what I will say is it is an MMF romance between Mark, Tristan and Isolde. It's also a very dark, erotic romance as well. Mark is a very, very dark character. He's about 10 years older than both Tristan and Isolde. He is ex-CIA. He's keeping a lot of secrets. He's a very powerful man, but he also runs and owns a sex club as well. He's very much a dominant, and he trains Isolde and Tristan to be his submissives. What's interesting about this one is that first Mark has a relationship with Tristan because Tristan is actually his bodyguard, They very much have a dom-sub relationship, and Tristan is madly in love with Mark. But then he sends Tristan to go and retrieve Isolde, because Isolde is actually arranged in marriage to Mark. It's a marriage of convenience, really, but when it's time for them to get married, Tristan is sent to go and pick Isolde up and bring her back to New York. And of course then Tristan and Isolde are going to form their own relationship separately from Mark. So what I love about this is each of the characters have relationships with each other, but they also then have a relationship collectively between them. And it's a very, very kind of heavy plot. There's very complex, there's lots going on in here, but it's absolutely brilliantly done. It's really, really well told, and Simone did a brilliant job with the whole trilogy. This last book was absolutely fantastic, and so I would highly recommend. But like I say, because it's a trilogy, I've spoken quite a lot about the other two books in the past as well. I don't want to say anything more about this book to spoil anything for anyone. I know that's not my normal style. I know I normally do like to spoil things for you, but for this one I really think it's better if you don't know any more information than that. But I couldn't not include it because, like I said, it was a 5-star read and an absolute standout of the month. Next up then, we've got Bad Intentions. This is by Mila, Kane, and this one was a dark ice hockey romance. It's also new adult romance as well, because the couple in this one are essentially senior year in high school. Now this is a romance between Lily and Caden. It's bully romance, there's some BDSM kink in here, particularly primal play, very much dealing with a damaged hero. And it's forbidden because these two are in forced proximity together. They're actually going to be living in the same house together. And of course we've got an obsessed hero as well. So Caden definitely comes from the wrong side of the tracks. He's had a very, very difficult upbringing, and he has a very manipulative, abusive kind of uncle who is forcing him to be an enforcer. So he's the local criminal around town. He sells a lot of drugs, and he forces Caden into being the enforcer to go and rough people up when they haven't paid him the money. But Caden is an absolutely fantastic ice hockey player, and he really wants to turn professional, and he wants to get out from the clutches of this uncle character. So when he gets the opportunity to play in Hayde Harbour, which is a town over and is much more affluent, it's a lot more investment in the school, shall we say, and the pupils are much wealthier than Caden is used to. He gets invited by the ice hockey coach at the school to come and join the team because he really, really wants to kind of win the championship that year, and Caden is a golden ticket to doing that. So he brings Caden over from the neighbouring school, neighbouring town, to his school in his town so he can play ice hockey on their team. The thing is, the rule is you have to live in town in order to go to the school, so the coach invites Caden to come and live with him. And lo and behold, Lily, our love interest, is the coach's daughter. Now, as the coach's daughter, she's completely off limits to everyone else on the ice hockey team, but Caden is not going to let the rules stop him from having a relationship with her. The thing is, Lily pushes all of Caden's buttons, and it's not really the kind of person who wants his buttons to be pushed, shall we say. And so he very much becomes her bully. He's very, very kind of an aggressive sort of character. He tries to scare her off so she won't kind of pry into his life or want anything to do with him and will just stay away from him. But of course Lily keeps picking at the edges, and Caden gets more and more aggressive, and so they kind of have quite a toxic relationship to start because they can't be apart from each other, yet they don't really get on at all, and Caden is very kind of closed off and caged. She doesn't want her to find out about his history, what he's capable of, where he's come from, but Lily isn't going to take that lying down. And so when things start to unravel and she starts to figure out actually what's going on, Caden is not going to take too kindly to that. But like I said, their chemistry is absolutely explosive. These two absolutely should be together, and he is the perfect blend. This story is the perfect blend of him being, you know, toxic and cruel and callous, but also utterly in love with her, completely obsessed with her, will do anything for her, even get down on his knees for her. So I absolutely loved it. I think, like I say, Mila Kane did a fantastic job of walking the line to make sure that he wasn't too cruel, that we couldn't love him, but equally that it just gave her that edge to make it a true dark romance. And loved how it played out. Next up I've got Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold, which is a standalone historical romance set in Colorado in 1885. This one was so compelling. I was completely invested from the very first page in this couple and how they were going to get their HEA, and I absolutely loved this couple but hated the other characters in this book so much. And part of the drive to continue to read in this was not only that this couple, Anne and Cord as they are called, get their HEA, but also that some other people in this town who have treated them so badly will finally get their comeuppance. And honestly, it was heartbreaking to read, but so satisfying at the end when those people who really deserved it got absolutely what was coming to them. So what is this one about? Well, like I said, it was set in Colorado in 1885, so it's a historical romance, but kind of on the cowboy side of things. And our hero in this one, Cord, he's of mixed heritage. He's half Cheyenne and half white, and so of course the people in town are very bigoted. They don't treat him very well, and he therefore has kind of built a life a little bit in isolation. He runs his own ranch. He is a bit of a horse whisperer, looks after his own horses, and very much tries to keep himself to himself because, like I say, the people in town are very prejudiced against him. But he lives a very quiet life, just doing what he needs to do to get by. Then we have Anne. She lives in town, and she's sort of in her late 20s and she's still a spinster. And so her father is absolutely appalled by this. He's completely embarrassed by his daughter who's not yet got married, and he decides he's going to marry her off to a really old guy in town who's in his 50s, really repulsive. And Anne absolutely refuses. She's like, no, I'm not married yet, and I refuse to marry that hideous guy. I'm not going to do it. And her father decides he's going to lock her in a room without feeding her for a week to try and wear her down, so she's got no choice but to give in. But she's been working on a plan to escape, and finally she is able to escape the house, and she determines she's going to run away. And as she starts to run away, she takes refuge in Cord's barn, and that's where he finds her the following morning, and he asks her what she's doing there. He promises her safe passage to the local train station, but of course before he can get her away, the menfolk of the town turn up with their pitchforks and decide to punish Anne and Cord. And the way they do this is to, one, force them to marry each other there and then. They've brought the priest with them, they're going to get them married. But then they're going to beat Cord almost to death and leave him there. And they ride off without a care, and they leave her there as well. By some absolute miracle, Cord is not dead, and Anne is able to drag him into the house and then nurse him back to health. And of course now these two are both married. Now they were married kind of in jest by these horrible men, thinking it was going to be really funny to do this. But of course Anne and Cord are going to take their vows seriously, and they're going to start a life together. And the rest of this book follows kind of what happens, the opinions of the people in town, how everyone's trying to come between them and convince Anne to leave Cord, and also the fury of her father when he finds out that Cord is still alive and Anne is still living with him. He is going to do everything in his power to basically get Cord out of the picture and Anne away from him. So of course these two have a lot of things that they need to overcome, but what I absolutely loved about this is that they remain completely steadfast for their care for each other. As they spent more time together and got to know each other better, they truly had an affection for one another, which over time turned into love, and it was absolutely brilliantly done. And of course their loyalty to each other and their determination to stand up for the people in town, that they won't come between their relationship, and that they're finally going to get their HEA, was absolutely fantastic. I thought this was such a clever plot, such a heartbreaking story, and like I said, I don't think I've ever hated the side characters or the other people in this book as much as I hated the characters in this book. And so absolutely brilliantly done, and like I said, completely invested in this couple and could not wait to see them get their HEA. Finally then, the standout 5-star read of the quarter of course was going to be Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. This is another historical romance, but also a pirate romance, because in this book we have not one but 2 pirates and also a pirate hunter as well, because this is an MMF relationship between Bennett Sharp, Ashley Cutler and Priest Farrell. This is absolutely a dark romance as well. Pam Godwin takes us to the lowest lows and the highest highs with this book. She really takes us through the ringer with it. But absolutely fantastic storytelling. Again, a book that I'd wanted to read for a long time. I had it on my shelf for a long time and finally got the opportunity to pick it up in July, and I'm so glad I did because it is now a firm favourite of mine. So the premise of this story is that Bennett Sharp is a female pirate and she leads her own vessel. She's also on the run because she's on the run from pirate hunters generally, but she's also on the run from Priest Farrell because, unbeknownst to everyone else, she's actually married to this guy, but he's betrayed her and she's left him, and now she is on the run, and he is single-mindedly focused on tracking her down and getting her back. But she has been on the run for about 2 years. Now, as he literally catches up with her, he's almost got her in his grasp. She instead is taken captive by a very famous pirate hunter called Ashley Cutler, and she sacrifices herself to keep Priest safe and is captured by Ashley, put on board his ship, and his intention is to set sail for England, where he is going to have her tried and hanged for piracy. Bennett is very much holding out on the hope that Priest is going to catch up with her before she makes it to England, because she knows he's so obsessed with her that he's absolutely going to come after her, right? So it's one of the reasons she decides to sacrifice herself. No point in getting them both captured. If she can keep herself alive and maybe even do some delay tactics with Ashley Cutler, then Priest may have the chance to catch up with her and rescue her before she makes it to the gallows. And so that is kind of her plan. But of course, Ashley Cutler is not a stupid man. He is also very dark in nature, and these two are going to play games with one another, and Ashley is invariably going to come out on top. And as we go through this story, we start to realise that there's more than meets the eye to this relationship between them, but also between her and Priest, and Ashley and Priest, and how their lives are all interwoven into each other. Bennett, though, as a heroine, goes through an awful amount of trauma in this book. The things that she has to go through and experience in order to stay alive is pretty horrific, I'm not gonna lie. But she's very, very tenacious, she's extremely resilient, and she does manage to hold on. This woman is not going to be kept down for long. She remains true to herself. She's absolutely steadfast, she's so courageous, and she's so tenacious as well. And I'm in awe of what she was able to endure in order to get to the HEA on the other side. So as always, Pam has done a fantastic job with this book. There's absolutely no disputing her writing talent, and definitely a standout read for the quarter, like I've said. Okay, so there were all the 5-star reads. And like I said, my standout book of the month was Seat of Ruin by Pam Godwin. But I did promise you 3 honourable mentions. The first one is The Kingpin's Cool Girl by Annika Martin. Now this was a mafia romance, and it was an Albanian mafia romance between Luca and Edie. This was also an age gap, undercover style of romance, because essentially what happens is that Edie, our heroine in this one, her sister has gone missing, and she is trying to investigate and find out where her sister has gone, and she has therefore taken to the streets. While she's on the street corner, as it were, she gets arrested by a police officer who thinks that she is, you know, a sex worker. And she explains that, no, I'm just here to look after, to find my sister. And he does her a deal and says, hey, well, I won't press charges and write this up as you being a naughty girl, but I would like you to help me also with an investigation. This will help you with your investigation with your sister, but I need you to go undercover into this Albanian mafia just for one night. Just go to the pub, make yourself look all attractive, see what you can figure out from the guys who invariably will talk when they've had too much to drink. And so Edie agrees to do this. While she's there though, Luca comes into the room, and Luca is the boss, essentially. He's the Kir, he's the boss of the Albanian mafia, and he's not supposed to be there that night, but he comes in and he takes an instant shine to Edie, and he basically propositions her, and assuming that she is actually a sex worker herself, and this is the irony here, because she was arrested for one when she wasn't, and now the boss of the Albanian mafia assumes that she is one, and he basically says, hey, how about you be my call girl, I'll pay you handsomely and we can go from there. And so the police officer encourages her to agree to this so that she can learn even more, and then their relationship goes from there. So I did rate this one 4.5 stars. I had rounded up to 5 stars on Goodreads, but I wanted to include it here because this one really surprised me. I really wasn't expecting much from this book, and not because I didn't think it looked good, but I'd never heard from this author. I just picked it up on a bit of a whim. It was an art copy that I picked up, and I went in blind, having absolutely no idea what this one was about. But it was so good. The plot was absolutely brilliant. I really loved the way this was done and how the story was told. Really, really related to these characters, was really invested in their love story and wanted them to be together. So I wanted to give this a shout out because if, like me, you'd not heard of Annika Martin before, or if you'd read her because she does some other styles of book as well and doesn't often do mafia or dark romances, then I definitely give this one a try. I really, really enjoyed it, and we'll be definitely looking out for more books in this series when they come out. Another one I just wanted to mention again because I loved it. I've talked about this a couple of times so far in the last couple of weeks, and that's Tower by Claire Kent. This is a really short novella, super easy to read, but an absolutely delightful read. Claire Kent does such a great job of telling a really believable love story in just a few pages, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. As you can see from the title and what it says underneath, this is book 1 of the post-apocalyptic fairy tale series that she's starting of short stories slash novellas that are all set in the Kindled universe, which is a post-apocalyptic romance series where an asteroid has hit Earth, and you know, humanity is having to recover from this devastation. And this short series of these fairy tales starts with Tower, which is a very loose Rapunzel retelling, and we were following Levi and Hayley. And Hayley is our Rapunzel character. She's very much being protected by her father because, you know, bad men are on the loose. You know, it's post-apocalyptic. People are out for themselves. Not all humans are good. And so this young, beautiful woman needs a lot of protection. And so her father has very much kept her to himself, not in a horrible way, but you know, she's been very much isolated. Unfortunately for Hayley, at the start of this book, her father passes away and she's left completely vulnerable, and so she approaches the local biker boss Levi and says, hey, I know I'm now pretty vulnerable around here, but you can have all of my resources, whatever's left in the house that my father left behind, if you promise to look after me, and we, in a very transactional way, I will also agree to be your woman and you can have sex with me as well. And Levi is a little bit uncertain about this. He doesn't snap off her hand to do this, but he also realizes that she is very vulnerable, and he knows that if he doesn't agree to this, she will be in a lot of danger. And so he kind of reluctantly agrees, and they start this quite awkward relationship at first, where he takes her back to, you know, the place where he lives and sets her up as his woman. But slowly but surely they obviously get to know each other better and start to get a great amount of affection for one another, until finally that turns into love. And like I say, Claire Kent does an absolutely brilliant job of doing all of that in such a short amount of time, but I absolutely believe the love that this couple had for each other, and was completely rooting for them the whole time. So wanted to throw that in there. If you're in the market for a quick and easy read, I'd highly recommend this one, definitely. And then finally, I want to talk about Shadow's Claim by Kresley Cole. This is book 13 in the Immortals After Dark series, and Afterlife, they're probably my favourite of the series so far. Of course, this is a paranormal romance between Bettina and Trahan. He is a Dacian vampire and she is a half demon, half sorcerer. And essentially in this book, Bettina's uncle and godmother are trying to get her a partner. They want her to get married for the security of the kingdom, because she's kind of like the queen of this realm that she is part of, and she definitely needs a husband to kind of reinforce her powers, make sure that she's protected and all of that good stuff. And so in a very traditional way of their people, they arrange this kind of like tournament. It's like gladiator style tournament where heroes can enter the tournament for a chance to win this woman's hand in marriage, but they have to fight to the death. And in an odd twist of fate, and because of a series of circumstances, our hero in this one, Trahan, ends up having to enter this competition and fight for her hand in marriage. And once they've met, he realises that she is actually his bride because she bloods him, so these are fated mates, she's his bride, but he has to fight his way through a bunch of other men trying to get the same outcome as him, and tries to win her hand in marriage. And as we go through the book, they obviously spend more time together, get to know each other, and we learn loads of other things about this storyline as well. But I just loved the amount of page time this couple had with each other, the fact that it was very, very old-fashionedly courting her. He would take her on these little romantic strolls and dates and go for picnics and things, all the while fighting it in this very bloody and aggressive tournament in order to, you know, thwart all of his other opposition until finally he is the last man standing. So overall, really enjoyed that one. Like I said, it's probably, after Lothair, my favourite book in the series so far. Okay, there we are. That is my quarterly reading wrap up where I've highlighted my favourite reads of the last 3 months. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and all that's left for me to do is thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And I've also got 3 4.5-star reads that I want to give an honourable. What this female, but Bennett is absolutely, but Bennett is such a strong woman. She's absolutely tested to her limits, but she pulls through. She's so resilient and she's so steadfast. She's so resilient and so brave, and I just absolutely was in. So what this, he is a Dacian vampire, and she is a half decent